È bello avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con Easy Bank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo. Easy Bank, semplicemente banca.
Vi prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene.
È bello avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con Easy Bank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo. Easy Bank, semplicemente banca.
prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene.
Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo,
Qualcuno che si impegna, che si batte.
che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto e il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza nel cuore ferito del presente. E tutto questo
Proporre con la propria vita.
esiste anche grazie a te.
Buonasera.
Good evening and welcome to this panel entitled Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Humanity Between Digital Desert and New Constructions. So we had last year another panel about another topic, the relationship between young people and digital devices and education. This year, we want to delve into the challenges and the responsibility of each and every one of us on several levels. And we're going to talk about this in the perspective of AI. AI is part of our lives. So AI brings a lot of responsibilities, technically, socially, and ethically. We have asked some renowned guests to help us find answers. You see Sergio Belardinelli to my right, former professor of sociology of cultural processes at the Bologna University and columnist at Il Foglio. Then, further right, Nello Cristianini, professor of artificial intelligence, University of Bath, and author of the trilogy of the Thinking Machines. A very good read. Don't miss it. Thanks for coming, Nello. And then from remote, we have Father Paolo Benanti, expert in bioethics, ethics of technology and human adaptation, member of the United Nations New Artificial Intelligence Advisory Board. Thank you, Paolo. Paolo is a friend of the meeting. You are from remote this year, but next year we hope to have you here in person. So we look forward to having you there. And so we will impose a tariff on you, well, provided that is not according to my weight. I am Fabio Mercorio. I'm going to be the moderator of this panel. And I'll try to make this conversation as interesting as possible. So I'll try, first of all, to make a sort of introduction to facilitate the questions that we are going to have next. So what happened over the last few years? Because we have been faced with something that seems intelligent to us. What is AI about? Where does it come from? Well, it's something that had not appeared from nothing. But today, AI is a buzzword. Everybody thinks about AI and thinks about ChatGPT and its brothers. But what happened? Let's try to do it in 4 easy steps. First of all, over the last few years, the calculating ability of our devices has increased enormously. Our devices become more and more powerful, and this is exponential. So machines can be very powerful computationally, and they're always better. Secondly, second step, over the last 20 years at least, we have connected the whole world. So it's not just the internet, but because the internet runs on a motorway, so the Earth is connected through cables, even underwater cables. And third step, thanks to the connectivity and the devices, we were able to generate huge amounts of data. We generate data, we use data, so it's a continuous flow that self-feeds itself. And so huge amounts of data are constantly being generated. That is why there is a growing need of looking into this data, purchasing data, music data, writing data, corporate data, and so on and so forth. So there's a growing need of reading this data. We needed somebody reading those data. So scientists developed a growing number of algorithms, and another term that has become pretty familiar. In other words, softwares, today they are trained, they're not programmed any longer. So algorithms, and Nello will certainly explain this much better than me, can read the data and learn from data and self-learn from data, as if we were able to somehow teach the algorithm to automatically learn what to take from those data. And so these self-learning ability of the algorithm has been strengthened. And over the last few years, we came across 2 milestones. First of all, automatic learning based on neural networks. They are not attempts to reproduce the human brain, but rely on the human brain to make calculation. And secondly, we have technically the transformer architecture. So we have neural networks on the one hand trying to mimic the calculational ability of the brain, and on the other hand we said, so what can we do of that? Well, the transformer architecture that it is at the heart of generative AI is an architecture that de facto, oversimplifying, can read at the same time chunks of text. When we read a text, we read it line by line. But think about the ability to read instantly a single page and repeat that over and over again. So algorithms somehow can read. And because of this, well, they read anything that had been digitized over the years, so the whole internet. Once algorithms have learned to read the internet, we have done something else. So let's do a game. Let's try to predict the missing word. Let's hide a word. So a fill in the gaps game, so that AI has learned to regenerate content. So that is why we talk about regenerating AI that does not repeat what it saw, but somehow reproduces something it saw, but with some new element in it. Well, that said, I'm now going to ask the first question to our guests, which is the following. It goes without saying that AI is scary. AI is scary because we thought we were the only one to generate contents and text from scratch. When I go into the classroom, I remember one young lady telling me, well, if AI would be better than me at the Latin examination or mathematics, what am I studying for if AI is always going to be better than me? And I said, well, we do not just study to learn, we also study to know better ourselves, to get to know what we are much better. So that was my first instinctive response. So we know that AI has become pervasive in every area of life. So from social networks to online shopping, from what we see to what we read, AI is everywhere. So in this sense, considering your technical background, what challenges do you see ahead? I'm not asking you a prediction of the future. Clearly, this is not the case, but I would like to know from you a critical analysis of the current situation in your field of study. So, Nello, please be the first to start. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Right, I'll keep setting the framework. So what are we talking about? The computer containing the Grok model, it's Elon Musk's model, is one of the 5 or 6 models. It's a calculating centers made of 200,000 calculators. Each one of those uses 700 watts, like a hairdryer. So they needed 3 months of constant training to train them. It used the whole energy used by a big city for 1 year. So this mega computer read a huge number of data, video, books, the whole internet, codes, data, softwares, and somehow understood it, allow me to say. Such a machine that in 3 months digests the whole web is something that we were not able to say 10 years ago. And we test the machine with natural language tests, and the machine answers in natural language, and we can judge and assess the outcome, and it even succeeded in university exams with high scores. This is something that 10 years ago did not even exist, because the basic algorithm for this did not exist. 7, 8 years after that situation, we are now at this point. Gemini is the same, ChatGPT is the same, Claude and all the others. They work according to the same principles. So it's a brave new world, uncharted land. So we followed our human nature, and we really ventured in uncharted land. So this is, new bricks. Well, anxiety and fear are normal. It's normal to be scared about something like that. And certainly the student you talked about, what if AI is always going to be better than me? Well, in many cases, the machines can do things as good as humans. For instance, language translation, some X-rays faces in airports are recognized by computers and not by police officers. So there are many tasks that are cognitive-based and that are performed by machines. And this is accelerating very fast. And probably over the next few years, much more will happen. And this is a form of technological innovation that has a cultural impact. So what can be wrong? Which is the main challenge right here, right now, faced with this kind of innovation? Well, in the very short run, the main challenge is pretty immediate. There are risks and opportunities. So opportunity is about a new way to teach, a new way of doing science and medicine in an automated way. Risks about surveillance, war, we see that clearly in Ukraine. Or a terrorist that can use such machines to invent poisonous substances. What we lack are the cultural tools to coexist in this world with this kind of solution. So we are in a brave new world, and we need to start finding solutions, and we should talk to each other about that. What I can tell you is that it is possible to know this. It's a technique. It's not anything magic. We can study it. And we have the opportunity and the duty to study this and to be part of it, because knowing it and participating in it directly, we can guide this innovation. Otherwise, we will be passive, frightened, and everything will go on, by itself, autonomously. So my answer is, faced with this piece of news, the real challenge is know, learn, study, and participate. Paolo, first of all, I'm very happy to find the friends of the meeting again. And I'm very sorry and very sad for not being there, because it's beautiful to find people. I lack that friendship and that fraternity spirit. Okay, I'll go straight to 2 points. Well, with Nello, we're like sparring partners. He talked about the processing part. I will focus on the human element, because what let us change our place in a sort of animal hierarchy on the planet is our ability to cooperate. Our species was able to make other species become extinct. We now know that for sure. And so each one of us can develop the so-called theory of the mind. So anyone I'm faced with as the same mind able to develop feelings and ideas. On top of this, we have attachment, the attachment effect, the fact that among all human beings, there are some that are special to me because they are friends, or let's think about the mother-daughter or mother-son relation. Well, this is, again, something unique to humans. These sophisticated machines that use language and that seem to provide complex answers based on complex semantics. Well, actually, this is something that generates something unique in me, and the birth of a theory of mind. So I'm starting to think that that machine has some subjectivity as a mind of its own, and so I can develop some attachment So what Sam Altman from OpenAI said was scandalous. When they moved from GPT-4 to 5, many people said, well, I lost a friend, I lost a person that was responding me. Now I have something more accurate but less empathic, so with less empathy. What does this mean? Well, I mean, we humans can get that kind of reaction from such devices. So how and should we have some sort of restrictions and guardrails, because we should never somehow undermine humans. And then we have work. Work, by quoting John Paul II, is a way for men to express their own dignity and a contribution to the world. So AI as an innovation tool, let us question the way we should redefine production processes so that humans are not just those performing little tasks or providing services, but also generating value within this transformation. This is not a problem of the human or of the machine. It's simply a matter to get organized together, because the human can always bring some added value when it comes to working processes and transformation processes. Again, these are two pretty different challenges, but what I really like about the meeting is that it is possible to raise questions during such panels without being in a hurry to find an answer. Thank you. Thank you, Paolo. Sergio, it's your turn. Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be here, even though rarely I felt so unfit for the topic. When I'm asked which are the most urgent challenges of AI today, well, I usually try to go back to something I'm more used with, the social-cultural dimension or the philosophical side of it. I do think that, at least to me today, AI is a problem, but at the same time an opportunity. And we should ask ourselves three questions with respect to which I see a risk, because AI could exacerbate them and make them even more problematic, but also we should seize this opportunity as an opportunity to deeply reflect on these three key questions that are impoverishment of the language, destruction of the sense of reality, destruction of the sense of truth. Well, these topics do not belong just to current times, and these topics were not generated by the AI. These issues have always been there for some centuries by now. In the 70s of the last century, George Steiner, in a beautiful book, After Babel, talked about language impoverishment. And he did that for good reasons, because he had understood that the language divide is one of the most socially devastating divides, one of the most discriminating ones. So let's not forget that 30% of our fellow citizens in Italy are not able to write or to understand a low, not very complex text, so a low complexity text. But then some people said, finally, ChatGPT will be able to fill this gap. And so you will be able to ask a question, get the text ready in a few seconds, maybe a text adaptable to your, cognitive level. I think that recently some MIT research was published on this. GPT is a resource for a person who already knows how to write. For somebody who already knows how to write, the ChatGPT is so useful. I write on a piece of paper. I write on, the Il Foglio, a newspaper, and recently it published a digital paper, and the articles published by ChatGPT often were more beautiful than those written by humans. So this is tricky. So ChatGPT can be a great resource, but the more it is a resource, the more a person is educated. And being educated is something that should be part of an inner duty, regardless of AI of any sorts. AI could even dry out the little dexterity we have in mastering the language. And those who have will be given more, and those who haven't will be taken away even the little they have. So as to the destruction of the sense of reality, it is as if we have been destroying the sense of reality, and we'll be doing that for at least the last couple of centuries, as if the little devil of Descartes had prevailed. But then we risk to lose sight of the Cartesian somehow of a meaning. But then we risk to lose sight of the meaning of truth and the sense of truth. So I'll get back to this later on. But in the meantime, it is very important also for ethics. And, well, talking about ethics with Paolo Benanti, it's something that is extremely tricky. But Gomez Davila, in a famous quote, said, well, authorizations do not count much when meaning has no value. Without a deep meaning of ethics and reality, of truth and reality, ethics has no meaning, is, without any value. And certainly technology poses a huge issue from many respects. Thank you, Sergio.
Noi ci siamo dati un timing serrato per...
Well, we have decided to have quite a short meeting with very strict timing, but now we have a second round of questions, and I think that from what you said, what comes out is that the AI inside society, but also among human beings, AI is really setting light on some topics that for many years we only dealt with partially. In the past, we used to say we're the first generation in the history of humanity. So nobody before us, we are the first ones teaching reality to machines. And machines are understanding reality in their own way. So some people are skeptical. We are divided into skeptical people, optimistic people. But as a matter of fact, as Paolo said, we have to be patient, and we will have to wait to see what is going to happen. And so the second question is, for you, the second question is, can we talk about the relationship between science and technologies? Because as Paolo told us, George Dyson, historian of technologies, used to say that science habilitates or enables technologies, but not necessarily the opposite. So history shows us that sometimes a new technology made it possible to make incredible discoveries. For example, the telescope that opened up the way to astronomy, microbiology, etc. But some other times instead, we had the opposite relationship. The social media, for example, transformed communication, political life, social life, but they didn't open up new frontiers of science. And so the question I would like to ask the three of you is, before AI that is so predominant now, sometimes dramatically, underlying a few aspects, for example, the topic of reality or the fact that we may feel close to an object, even if the object is not alive, but we perceive it as a friend. So what is the relationship between science and technology, and above all, the AI? Can it be just a tool? Or do you think that it could open up or pave the way to new scientific frontiers? Remember that today AI is actually supporting medicine for screening tasks, or, as you said, Nello, earlier, it is very important in terms of security for image recognition. So the AI that recognizes premature children or identifies if there's any medical risk. So AI can be good. But with regard to the connection between science and technologies, my question is, do you think that it could pave the way to new scientific frontiers, or do you think it is just a tool? Paolo, the floor is yours. All right, so I will try to reply to your question. I talked to Dyson about this, and this topic is actually part of a wider horizon, a wider context. And so it is quite challenging to talk about this topic within the context of the meeting. And also, if we think about the schools and the education world, that relationship between science and technologies seems to have changed due to the AI. So these tools, especially those that have an impact on the market, were born in the Silicon Valley. And but in a totally different way from the previous tools. Why? Well, because they are some technologies that do work, but they are also the expression of scientific theories. But what we should ask ourselves is, what kind of knowledge do they offer to us? So a technical artifact, like Firestone, for sure, gave us a lot of benefits because the stone gave us the opportunity to cook and to have heating. We were used to modernity, and the scientific understanding of reality then paved the way to new technologies. But according to Dyson, this has changed nowadays. And so this is what we said earlier, that is to say, at the moment we have this big source of knowledge that is given by these models. And these resources recognize some schema inside reality. So thanks to this recognition of a schema as part of the reality gives us some very important tools. If I transform what I do into data, then I will have some very well-performing artificial algorithms. And so I will have a schema that allows me to stop at the red traffic light when I'm driving. So having said that, this can be very useful for autonomous driving cars, for example. So they will be able to drive in a way that is similar to human driving. But the approach is very different. from Galileo's approach, for example. So these tools allow us to speed up the search for new drugs, for example, and also we can anticipate the knowledge of some vital biological components, for example, the behavior of proteins. But at philosophical level, we should ask ourselves a few questions about the use of these technologies and also the unwanted effects of these devices and these algorithms, for example. If we think about those algorithms for facial recognition that have identified the somatic traits that belong to some ethnic groups, or some other tools, for example, that that are used for Amazon employees. So, for example, if they like baseball, then they will have better performance in the working place. As a consequence of this, during some time, they prefer to hire people that love the baseball at Amazon. But as a consequence of this, they started hiring more men than women. So these are very powerful schema, and if we carry out a rational analysis, we should ask ourselves, how shall we manage these schema? These are philosophical questions that are very urgent, very important, since AI is spreading out so quickly. And all devices, all mobile phones, computers nowadays interact and are designed to interact with these models. This is why we have to ask ourselves these questions, philosophical questions, very important to ask to ourselves in Europe, especially since, well, we want to define our knowledge and awareness. Thank you, Paolo. Sergio? Well, I would like to give you a good answer. But in order to provide you with a good answer, we should know exactly what AI is. And therefore, Fabio, Nello, and Paolo would be able to give you a better answer than mine, for sure, since I don't have such a deep knowledge of AI. However, I can try and imagine how important AI will be for science, a science like philosophy, for example. I think that for philosophy, AI is certainly something extremely attractive if we try to go back to the meaning of some fundamental topics. And in the past, actually, we were too superficial in trying to analyze these topics. And maybe AI really forces us to think on how our brain works. Maybe AI is really forcing us to ask ourselves, are we sure that human brain is so functional, as philosophers ask themselves? Are we really sure that human intelligence works like machines? So I think that all these questions, these are questions that will take our time in the future years. And I'm sure that we will really have to focus on these hot topics. And I think that we will have to go back to a subject we thought about in the past. For example, is it fair to design and build all the things that are technologically possible to build? Well, I think that nowadays AI forces us to ask ourselves all these questions. Maybe we will have to find a way to keep the control of something that is amazing. But we will have to maintain the control of this machine. I read the books by Nello, and he is so clear in what he writes. And if you read it, you will understand what we're dealing with. You'll understand what kind of challenge we're facing. And also the challenges we're facing as human beings. So I think this is a great challenge. It is not about, in my opinion, well, actually, in the last book on the superhuman, he makes irony on how many of us say yes, but. So he says, it is true that AI makes all these things, but we as human beings. So he is very ironic, and I understand it. As a matter of fact, machines are better than us at doing most of the things we do ourselves as human beings. The problem is not about yes, but. I think we should focus on if, but. So if all these things work in a context where we lose control, then this will be a problem. This is the main issue, and this is what worries me at the moment. And as for the rest of it, I agree with you. I agree with what you say on AI. So this is the essence. This is what we should never forget. Thank you. Thank you, Sergio Nello. Thank you. So I'd like to start from this if, but, or yes, but. And there's a difference, indeed. And I understand the meaning of your question, Paolo. So why should we look at the epistemology of these machines? Well, because we have to understand what the aim is. If we don't understand the aim, we will never be able to answer to this if, but. So we need to know the knowledge of the machines. We need to know these machines in order to be able to trust them, and we're not there yet. However, we're making progress. First of all, we can't pretend this is not real. Last week, we had the Olympic Games of Math, and the winners were 2 automated systems. So these are the Olympic Games of Math, and 2 machines won them. The month before, there was a programming international competition, and the winner was a Polish human programmer. The second winner was a machine. So machines are becoming champions at the moment. So we can't say it's all fake. We can't pretend it's not here. And you see, machines are winning competitions. But however, we need to know what kind of knowledge they have. In my third book, I'm making some examples, and we have to know exactly. We need to understand, and we need to know exactly what is happening. I know that in the last few months, a lot of articles came out. Usually it's Anthropic, an American company that writes these articles. And for example, we know that a question in Italian gets inside their model, and the answer will be in Italian. Coming out will be in Italian. But inside it is presented in English, a simplified English that is the language of the machine. So you see, it's not fake. It is creating, it is changing the language, it thinks about it, it gives an answer, and then it translates back into Italian. At the moment, we're trying to understand what happens inside these machines. These machines are multimodal. The same groups of neurons is activated by the sentence Golden Gate or the image of the Golden Gate. It's the same symbol. And slowly we're understanding it. And remember, the way in which these machines think is different from the human thinking. These machines have different cognitive traits, different cognitive processes. So these machines and AI will help us understand what we are, and also the fact that we don't have the only way of thinking. We have a certain brain, we have expectations from the moment we are born. And also other animals, of course, we're all born with expectations. So I have scientific knowledge in terms of causes, reasons, processes, trajectories, and of course, if you go inside an atom, you will find a world where you have no cause or effect. And we think that it is not intuitive because we can't map it in our innate structures. So I think that these machines will be very useful in order to discover some laws wherever we find something that is unknown to us, or sometimes when we meet with the unknown, with something that is not intuitive. 100 years ago, we found ourselves in the same situation when we invented quantum mechanics, and where Einstein was not happy with it. And this teaches us about particles, and it works a lot better than other theories. In the future, we may have a machine that is able to, well, actually now we do have it, Alpha Genome, a product by DeepMind that is able to predict the effects that result from modifying a genome in a certain way. After observing a lot of genomes, now it can predict what will happen. So this is the world we are entering at the moment, where explications are written in a language that we can't understand, but anyhow, drugs can be produced even if there's no explanation. No explanation that can be easily understood by us in terms of cause and effect. This is due to the fact that our brain has evolved only for certain tasks, and when we go out of our comfort zone, this is it. So Paolo asked us a very nice question. What kind of knowledge emerges from that? And I think we'll understand more about ourselves. Thank you, Nello.
Mi aggiungo provando a dire se però.
What if blinded by the AI calculating ability, lose self-confidence in ourselves and confidence in human beings? Well, what's going to happen? So my last question is, what's the responsibility of each and every one of us? So as professionals, what is the responsibility that we all have? We are the very first generation training a machine. But at the same time, we are amazed by the machine ability to reason in an unexpected way beyond stochastic probabilities. So what's the responsibility that you feel in your jobs? And what responsibility you think each and every one of us should have? So we know that each should have responsibility in how AI will serve humanity and its good, well, at school, in education, within families, at work, and so on. Sergio, you are the first to answer. Well, considering my job, the job I've always performed for so many years, I feel a very, very, very important educational responsibility. I feel very accountable, and I think that this applies to anybody working in the education sector, from primary school down to university and post-academic training, because this is something so disruptive, so groundbreaking, that we cannot ignore it. And we should do that in order to enhance the great potential of all this. That is why it is absolutely paramount that we all start again to cultivate something we had left a little bit behind. And I go back to the sense of truth, the sense of reality. In a world like the one we live in a world where digital is so important, prevailing, well, we must acknowledge and accept that we live in a hybrid world made of real and virtual, of online and offline, of natural conversations and virtual conversations. We live in a world where it is becoming more and more urgent to be able to make distinctions, not generalizing, not overseeing differences, where everything flows regardless, where things seem to go on by themselves. In such a world, the risk is huge. We risk to, at the end of the day, stop seeing the difference between the human and the machine-based. And this is a major risk. And so we should not lose sight of this. Instead, we should think over this. I deal with, social anthropology. I dealt a lot with politics. So, we see today what fake news can do at different levels today. We know to what extent the public discourse has blurred lines when it comes to the distinction between truth and lies. And we cannot create a ministry of truth. It's unthinkable. The only way to tackle this is through greater education, greater responsibility, greater individual accountability. No one could imagine, or at least like an old school liberal like myself, like I am, I would never thought that I should think the excess of information as a problem. A liberal culture was based on the principle, the more the information, the greater the freedom. But today, we are not sure about that at all. Well, too much information can be a problem, and the bubbles can emerge, and we know what bubbles generate in the public discourse. That becomes a war. Giacomo Leopardi, in his discourse on the civil state of Italians in 1824, had precisely described something that we're experiencing today on a daily basis. A discourse that is reduced to a civil war, but conducted with other means, not weapons. However, no one can affirm that these tools could become amazing to favor people's growth from several points of view with greater education. And let's talk about, employment and jobs. Do we really think that the only way onwards is based on this sort of exponential innovation? these are big, big issues. Each one of us is somehow called to a deeper reflection on this. Thank you.
Grazie, sì, è bello che tu
Thank you for this question on responsibility. I remember when I was a student, Rita Levi-Montalcini came to Trieste to talk to us, and she started by saying, we all know by heart what the human rights are. Let's talk about your responsibilities, though, since you do have responsibilities, and we were all very silent. I will never forget that. So I feel responsibility to set the example. And the only way I know to set a good example is as a teacher. But first of all, we have to be clear. Clarity is very important. If we have understood something, we have to say that in a clear way. If we haven't understood it, then let's not speak. This is a major step forward against anxiety, also describing things with the correct words, describing different problems that could be created. One thing is copyright, another thing are fake news, etc. And then one at a time, we will sort them out, because there's always a way to solve something. What is really bad, something that I see, is that people lie, and they tell young people that there's no hope, that the world is at the end. But there is still a lot of hope, and we are finding the way for hope together. We should not be scared. This is not the first time the world is changing. And the idea that the world should be like 50 years ago, this is not possible. The world is changing, and you will make it work. No worry about that. And remember, everybody will have to do their own thing. I've seen here there are volunteers, the volunteers that manage the social media, those who walk the speakers to the stage. Everybody should do what they can do at their best. And let's do that. We've understood that, and I have no doubt about the future. So I have taken note. We all have the duty to know, to learn, to explain these subjects. We're building something that doesn't exist, that is not here. Actually, as you started, you said building on new places. And it's now up to us. We have created something new, and we can't say that this is not real. There's no choice at the moment. This is how our species works. We have arrived. We're here now, as I've written on my second book. Our mothers say, don't play with fire. We are the ones who disobeyed to our mothers, and we played with fire, and this is where we are. We have pushed ourselves towards this boundary. This is a very difficult boundary, but we will understand it. As usual, we'll do our best. This is the best thing to do, and I always try to set a good example. Thank you. Thank you, Nello. And now, Paolo, would you like to draw up conclusions? Well, talking about responsibilities, since I study ethics, is quite dangerous. I will try to say something. We have the responsibilities of limits, and now I will explain it. Today, we do have this problem related to limits. We are going out of modernity with Kant that said that we have moral laws inside ourselves, and somebody sent 6 million people to concentration camps. This was a huge shock to us. Of course, every time we hear about limits, it sounds like something negative for human beings. But actually, we have shifted from traffic lights to roundabouts. And now we have flexi-men. If there's a speed camera, let's destroy it. This is the new fashion at the moment. But actually, when we talk about limits, limits are something very different. In a car, a limit is not if you have a 30 kilometer per hour speed limit. Nothing happens if you drive at 35 kilometers per hour. The limit is that if you have a heat engine in your car, without petrol, your engine will not work. So the limit is something geometrical. And you may have a circle that is not a flat line. You need to know exactly what is a car. You need to know the limit of human beings because this is a responsibility. This is what it means to be responsible. We are a generation that will have to decide about the coexistence between human beings and computers. So I don't have answers, of course, to this. And we have the responsibility to ask ourselves this question. This is the urgent topic at the moment, and we have this responsibility towards future generations. Thank you, Paolo. I would like to conclude now by saying a few things. When we met as a preparation for this meeting, Nello said, I would like it to be a dialogue and not a discussion. You were right, but in order to have a dialogue, we need to know exactly who everybody is. Nello reminded us of the volunteers, and so let's remember that this is a Christian place. This is a place built by Christians for everybody, not by Christians for Christians, but by Christians for everybody. So the meeting is a place for dialogue, and this is why I would like to conclude with a sentence that came to my mind when I was preparing for this meeting. It was 2009. Benedict XVI was very prophetic about technologies. He said, the new technologies are speeding up in terms of evolution. They're very reliable and efficient, but we shouldn't be surprised by them since they reply to the need of people to relate to themselves. And this desire is based on our desire to communicate and we are responding to the love of God. When we feel the need to get closer to other people, to know them better, we are responding to the call of God. This is our nature. We were created by God, the God of communication and communion. Well, the desire for connection, the instinct for communication that are so popular in our contemporary culture, but this is the propension of human beings to go beyond themselves in order to establish a relationship with other human beings. This was 2009. Internet was just starting, nobody had WhatsApp, and there was no Facebook. But actually, this text is prophetic because it told us what the future would be like, but also, especially, because it helps us judge this very uncertain present in order to live with no fear. A Christian bases his life on faith. So I'd like to say that we need to have criteria, and we need to have some guiding principles. And in order to win the challenge of the AI, in order to build with new bricks, we also need a community. We need for community. We need places like this one, but also places in our neighborhood. We need to have faithful and real friendships. And when you said we need to ask ourselves questions, we need to have a place where we can meet up, like this meeting. also making attempts, failing, calling each other, supporting each other. This is what we need. Otherwise, all our attempts will be useless. We don't know what is going to happen with the AI. Nobody knows. Even the people that are creating the AI today know exactly what will happen in the future. But we don't have to predict what is going to happen. The truth is that Christians need to be united. If we are united, we'll have no fear for the future. Thank you. Remember to support these places. Keep on supporting the meeting. You can find the places to donate. And thank you. Have a nice evening. Enjoy the meeting. Thank you.
Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo,
Che si impegna, che si batte.
che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto e il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza nel cuore ferito del presente. E tutto questo esiste anche grazie a te.
È bello avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con Easy Bank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo. Easy Bank, semplicemente banca.
Vi prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'ittere communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'ittere communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'ittere communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene,